Elena was the third daughter from the family of the Counts of Soft. She was a beautiful and successful aristocrat. Her family had fertile lands, well-built businesses. Her family lived free from envy and troubles. Her older sister and brother constantly fought for the right to be the heir. Elena didn't need it. She spent a lot of money to maintain her position in society. The girl was constantly learning and improving herself. There are people who constantly strive for their ambitions, while others live quietly, watching from the outside. Elena belonged to the second category. She always dreamed of living a quiet, peaceful life, full of small joys. After having tea with her family, Elena decided to go shopping. On one of the streets, the girl encountered an elderly beggar. The old woman began to beg to give her at least a coin. Elena ordered her maid to buy some bread and a bowl of soup, and then give this food to the beggar. "Oh, thank you. I am grateful for your kindness," the beggar exclaimed. "Is it really her?" the beggar thought to herself as she looked after Helena as she left. That same night, her maid burst into Elena's room and shouted loudly that she had to leave the manor as soon as possible. The maid grabbed the sleepy girl by the arm and dragged her towards the exit. Once outside, Elena saw a large cluster of dragons in the sky. "What is going on here? Where are my relatives now? Are they safe?" asked Elena to the maid. "What are you talking about now? Have you forgotten about everything? Your father passed away from an illness like 10 years ago now. Your sister and brother died 5 years ago. They died instantly after being involved in a traffic accident." The maid replied, "What the hell is she talking about now? I was having tea with my family in the garden yesterday. On top of that, I don't remember this maid's appearance. Maybe she's a spy?" Elena thought. "And I have absolutely no memory of this house. And why is there such a strange feeling inside me? It feels as if there are only ghosts living in this city. These streets scare me. I don't remember them." Suddenly, a dark-haired girl jumped out into the street. She started calling loudly for help. At the same second, a dragon flew up to her and tore her apart. "Mistress, hurry over here. We need to hide with you." The maid grabbed Elena's arm again and dragged her behind her. "You may have forgotten, but these magical creatures are called Elgirs. They have very good eyesight, so we need to hide from them with extreme care and as soon as possible. We can't stay with you in the open air," said the maid. Suddenly, a dragon flew up to the maid and pierced her through. The maid turned to Elena and asked her not to make a sound. She advised the girl to hurry to the west. The Sunrise in the Woods Tavern was located there. Elena felt a strong weakness in her legs. From fatigue, she staggered from side to side. However, it was impossible to rest. At any moment, she could be overtaken by monsters. The girl had absolutely no idea what was going on. This was the first time she had ever encountered such a thing. A few hours later, Elena still made it to the tavern the maid was talking about. Elena went to the door and knocked loudly. "Open up, please. My name is Elena Soft. I am the third daughter of the Count Soft family." "Ah, Madame Milistro, of course. Come in," exclaimed the young boy, opening the door. "Madame Milistro? What is he talking about now?" Elena thought in surprise. A petite girl walked up to Elena and covered her with a plaid. "My name is Anna, and this is my husband, Hans. I noticed you came here alone, unaccompanied. Where's your maid?" asked the girl. Helena bowed her head mournfully. Absolutely everyone had died, her family, and even the little-known maid. Elena asked Anna, "What were those monsters circling over the capital? Most likely you're talking about magical creatures right now. They used to attack us often before, but no one saw them for a whole year. So why did they return to the capital?" Anna said thoughtfully. "I don't understand what's going on at all. My father died 10 years ago, my brother and sister 5 years ago. These monsters haven't been in the capital for a year. They didn't appear to me, did they? I've definitely seen them." Elena began to feel like she was in some kind of scary dream. Elena asked for a mirror to be brought to her. Seeing her reflection in the mirror, Elena involuntarily flinched and dropped it on the floor. "Is that really my face? Anna, what year is it?" asked Elena. The girl answered her, but it was the 88th year according to the royal calendar. Has 20 years really passed in one night? Is that possible? Helena muttered in surprise. Suddenly, some rumbling was heard outside. Hans said it was probably monsters. He asked them not to worry, as the windows and doors of their house were tightly closed. For safety's sake, Hans suggested hiding in the basement. Sitting in the basement, Elena thought back to her family. The first to pass away was her mother. The girl missed her very much, because she treated her with great warmth. After the death of her mother, Elena cried continuously. Elena's father was entirely and completely focused on the family business. Therefore, the girl disliked him. However, Elena knew that her father strongly loved his late wife, so despite the snow and rain, he came to her grave every year. For this, she respected him. Although brother and sister often quarreled, jealous of each other, they treated Elena well. Her sister always sensitively understood her moods, and her brother, though unsuccessful, often complimented her. He liked to give his little sister gifts. Thinking about her family, Elena did not notice how she fell asleep. Waking up, the girl realized that she was completely alone in the basement. The girl cautiously climbed out. In the middle of the tavern, Elena found the mutilated bodies of Anna and Hans. Since they were good people, Elena felt sorry for them. Suddenly, the girl heard some noise. Turning around, she saw a monster approaching her. It looked like a big, toothy spider. "Well, go ahead and attack! I have no more reason to live!" screamed Elena. The spider stabbed Elena all the way through with a sharp movement. With a loud scream, Elena opened her eyes. Her heart was pounding frantically, her eyes full of tears. "Lady, are you all right?" An excited maid peeked into the room. Elena knew her. It was Mary. "Where am I now? What is this place?" asked Elena. "It's okay. Don't worry. This is your bedroom. You were probably just having a nightmare," replied the maid. Elena asked Mary to stay with her until she fell asleep. Being around Mary always made Elena feel warm and safe. Mary had come into their home many years ago. She had taken care of Elena since she was a little girl. "This clearly wasn't a dream," mumbled Elena. The sun was shining brightly outside the window and birds were singing, but the girl still felt uneasy. "This may be a wrong opinion, but there's definitely some validity to this dream. Most likely I dreamed something that will happen in the future. I remember exactly what was happening to me, what emotions I was feeling. I could even feel the pain coming from my shattered knees." Elena ordered her to find the beggar they had given a bowl of soup to yesterday. The old woman seemed to have fallen through the ground. No one could find her. The girl remembered that not far from the estate, in the woods, there was a hut where the old woman lived. Elena decided to turn to her for help. "Here you are," exclaimed the old woman. "It was you who were dressed as a beggar yesterday. It was you who asked us for a coin." Helena exclaimed in surprise. It seemed to the girl that, for a moment, something had changed in the world. It was as if yesterday had disappeared. The girl felt the aura of a ghost. "I see you've come to a place as filthy as my house after all." In a quiet, emotionless voice, the old woman said, "Is my squeamishness more important than a precious life?" Elena asked and sat down on the floor. "I had one frightening dream today. I am sure it was you who showed me the future. In this future, the kingdom will be attacked by hordes of monsters. It will eventually collapse, and people will die like flies. I have a sneaking suspicion in me that I can somehow influence the future. That's why you showed it to me. Am I right?" "You are right. The future can be changed. Do you know Duke Kaiwin Mayhad?" the old woman asked. Elena had never personally encountered Duke Kaiwin Mayhad, but she had heard a lot about him. His nickname was much more popular than his name. He was called a monster. "And why did you bring up the Duke?" Elena asked. "His son will become a warrior in the future. By becoming a warrior, he will awaken the power of the sacred sword about which much has been written in legends. It is with this sword that he will pierce the heart of the devil. The future you have seen will only be stopped by him," replied the old woman. "The old. If I understand correctly, you showed me a future in which this warrior was not born, yes?" clarified Elena. Remember, a warrior is only born when souls merge. And now you may go. I have said all I can," said the old woman, and then striking her staff on the ground, vanished. Back home, Elena began to study the books that mentioned magical creatures. From the old woman's words, she did not understand anything. In one of the books, Elena found information that the last time monsters attacked the kingdom was several centuries ago. Monsters are demonic creatures that live in the demonic world. Their king is called the devil. He is the one who controls the monsters. Unfortunately, right now, there is no known way to enter the demonic world and kill all the creatures before they get out. There's also no way to see if you can kill that devil yourself. And if I go to the king right now and tell him what happened, he'll just declare me crazy and won't believe a word I say. Elena called her assistant Albert over to her. She gave him the task of finding out if there were any families matchmaking with Duke Maihad. And I recently heard that a family is interested in the Duke. He is negotiating with the Linden family. That family has a daughter, Lady Miel. Narrated Albert. Wait, you mean to say that Duke Maihad is currently negotiating with the Linden family? He wants to take my cousin as his wife, Elena asked in a surprised voice. Just recently, I heard that you've been matched with Duke Maihad. Is this true? Exclaimed Elena, bursting into her sister's room. Elena? You came to visit me so unexpectedly, but it's still good to see you. Come on in, I'll tell you all about it now, said a surprised Miel. I think my father is terrible after all. As much as it was good for his cause, he shouldn't have sold me after all. I'm not a commodity. It was evident on Miel's face that the situation was extremely upsetting to her. But you'll have a baby when you get married, right? Helena clarified. From the surprised look on her sister's face, the girl realized that she had overreacted a bit. She should have asked a little softer. The question came out too harsh. I meant that when you get married, you will have to take on the role of a spouse. You'll have to take care of the household and give birth to an heir. That's why I'm asking you, do you plan to have children? Elena explained her question. Are you out of your mind? I don't want to talk about any children at all right now. I had no plans to have a child. I don't want to. Why are you asking me this? Don't you know who Duke Maihad is? Who would want children with him? Miel exclaimed. Elena didn't know the Duke well. The people of the kingdom claimed he was young, single, and rich. But he had a rather heavy character. He was also a monster created by a multitude of people. He was called a cursed ancient demon. It was said that the Duke was born with a large mark on his face. No one knew the origin of the mark. The Dukes tirelessly made efforts for the sake of their son's recovery, but even after years, the mark did not disappear. People began to loathe Kaiwin. People began to whisper that the mark was proof of a curse by an ancient demon. Many claimed that the Duke's stain was similar to the pattern of a demon that was mentioned in an ancient book. Answer me, would you bear a child by such a man? Wouldn't you be scared? Asked her sister Miel. I see no reason not to give birth, and I absolutely don't believe those silly rumors, said Elena with a kind of defiance in her voice. She needed someone to have a child with the Duke. After all, he was the only one who could save the world. What if it's not a rumor, but the real truth? On top of that, everyone knows that his face is disfigured. How am I supposed to get into bed with him? What if that stain spreads to me? Then I'll definitely kill myself, Miel exclaimed. What do you mean, move? Are you saying that his disease is contagious? Helena asked, surprised. I don't care if the disease is contagious or not. I'm not going to have children with him anyway. And why should I? I've made the decision to take a knight with me as an escort. This is Sir Amber, Miel admitted. You mean you're taking your lover as your escort? Are you out of your mind? Marveled Elena. She hadn't expected such frivolity from her cousin. What's the big deal? Even after marriage, it's normal for aristocrats to have affairs with lovers. And it's hard to call this event a wedding. Even the Duke will undoubtedly have fun with different wenches, replied Miel. Oh, it's so complicated. Why doesn't she want to have at least one child with the Duke? It's not like she doesn't know that the doom of this world depends on her decision. Elena thought with despair. Now explain to me what's going on. You come to me out of the blue and start reading me morals, and you ask me if I'm going to have a baby. Don't you think that's weird? Miel was indignant. Miel, can you please tell me how you got married? Asked Elena. It was quite simple there. My father and Duke Mayhad have some important contract related to the mine. To gain the Duke's trust, my father decided to marry me off, narrated Miel. Miel, you and I are cousins, but we communicate like family. Our families have been strong friends for decades. If anything were to happen to my family, I'm sure my uncle would take care of me as if I were his own. So I beg you, convince my father to send me. I want to be the bride at this wedding. Marquis Linden was delighted that his niece wanted to marry Duke Mayhad. He was ashamed of his daughter for having to force her to marry him. He loved his niece, too, but he felt less sorry for her. Marquis Linden sent a letter to the Duke asking if the bride could be replaced. Fortunately, the answer came immediately. The Duke didn't care who would be his wife. Elena lied to her brother that she had been secretly in love with Duke Mayhad for years, and when she had the opportunity to marry him, she decided not to miss her chance. Do you even know the reason they call him a monster? Her brother asked Elena. Yes, I know about the rumors that are going around the kingdom. For one thing, I don't believe them. It's not like we've never interacted with the Duke before. We don't know what he's really like. Secondly, this wedding will serve as an extra help to our family, replied Elena. By the way, my uncle promised that half of the proceeds from the mine will be ours. I really need this wedding. I didn't realize a lady would get married so quickly, said Mary. You know that all life is made up of suddenness. On top of that, all the ladies I know have already found partners and had their weddings. I'm the only one left, Elena replied. Elena first saw her future husband at the altar. On his face was a black mask. The girl noticed that the Duke's eyes were like the sea, as blue and deep. The Duke extended his hand to his future spouse. Elena carefully put her hand into the Duke's hand. She couldn't tear her gaze away from his eyes. They mesmerized her. If you ignore the mask, the Duke is quite handsome. He has large hands with long fingers, tall stature, broad shoulders, thought Elena, standing at the altar. Bride, Lady Elena Soft, do you swear in the name of God that you will protect and love your fiancé, Kaywin Mayhad, for the rest of your life? In a sonorous voice, the priest asked. I swear it, mumbled Elena. The Duke, too, promised to protect and love his bride. Although it's all formalities, something is giving me butterflies in my stomach. This whole situation seems rather strange and awkward to me. I'm standing next to a man I've never seen before, but whom I married nonetheless, thought Elena. Miel had been sobbing on her sister's shoulder for several minutes now. She didn't want to let her go to the Duchy of Mayhad. I didn't even know about how much you loved me. It's only because of you that I escaped this marriage. Thank you for everything. Crying through her tears, Miel mumbled, Calm down. You shouldn't beat yourself up like that. This is the wedding I wanted. I wanted it myself, soothed her sister Elena. Well, you're screwed, so what now? You won't be able to buy any more clothes at the capital's much-loved atelier, nor will you be able to eat dessert with me, said the brother who came up to Helena. It's no big deal that you and I won't be having weekly tea parties anymore. And if you do want to see me, you can come over any time, Elena replied. Elena, remember, I'm always on your side. If you find marriage difficult, don't hesitate to return to our home. We will welcome you with open arms, exclaimed the girl's sister. Elena was approached by her father. The girl thanked him for raising her and giving her freedom of choice. She was grateful to her family for their support. They took her sudden decision rather calmly. In about 20 years, this world will collapse. In 10 years, my father will die of a serious illness, and in 15, my brother and sister will have an accident. All these people will die, thought Elena, looking out the carriage window. It would be nice to know the details. If I knew what disease my father would die of and what day it would happen, I would try to prevent it. I'm also curious as to how the carriage with my brother and sister got involved in a traffic accident. A few days before her departure, Elena tried to find the old woman, but there was no sign of her. The girl blamed herself for not asking the maid she had met in her dream about the future in more detail. Elena looked at the Duke sitting across from her. He looked extremely calm. "You don't have to worry," the Duke said unexpectedly. What is he talking about now? Elena wondered. "I'm not taking off my mask in the carriage." Seeing the girl's mute question, the Duke replied, "And that's absolutely not why I was looking at you," said Elena. It took them a whole week to reach the palace of Duke Mahod. Upon entering the house, Elena's first request was to have a bath prepared for her. After taking a bath, Elena began to think about her first wedding night. It was a moment she couldn't miss, but how would it go? Would she be able to get pregnant the first time? I should probably drink some wine, then I won't feel so awkward. The girl decided to have a couple glasses, no more. Elena decided to wait for the Duke in her room. She waited for him until the wee hours of the morning. He never came, neglecting his spouse. Elena asked the maid to escort her to the Duke's room. She wanted to talk to him, as she believed that through dialogue any issue could be resolved. The thing is, the master isn't at the estate right now. Last night, a monster appeared in the duchy's territory and immediately disappeared. He went to explore the territory, said the maid. And when did he leave? Was he out of the house all night? Asked Elena to the maid. The girl replied that the Duke had left late in the evening and still had not returned. And do these lands often get attacked by monsters? Elena inquired. The maid explained to her that the Duke's lands were very fertile, and although all safety rules were followed, monsters periodically descended from the mountains, making life difficult for the people. As soon as Kaiwan Mahod took over the Duke's duties, he waited for the moment when the temperature would rise and personally led the knights up the mountain. Driven by his spirit power, he completely exterminated the monsters. In those days, peace came. Since then, several years have passed, and the monsters have started to come down from the mountain again. Therefore, the Duke has to periodically circle his territories to prevent massive attacks. "Shall I call all the servants to your room?" the maid asked. Elena answered her that she herself would familiarize herself with the people who live in the estate. The girl had decided from day one to assume the role of the Duke's consort. "It is an honor to welcome you, mistress," the servants exclaimed with glee. "My name is Ben. I am the steward of this house. And my name is Lula. I am the head maid. And I'm Kuko, in charge of the kitchen. And I'm Garner, in charge of the garden. I will also introduce myself to you properly. As of yesterday, I am the mistress of this estate. My name is Helena. As of late, I am the Duchess of Mahod. Please love and pity me. The palace is even bigger than I expected. I wonder if the Duke is coming to see me today. I've heard from the corner of my ear that he's already returned. I won't sleep tonight, so I won't miss his arrival." Elena thought to herself. That night, the Duke didn't come either. Nor did he for the next few nights. Elena didn't understand what was going on. She began to guess that the Duke was simply avoiding her. Elena decided to act. She couldn't wait any longer. Noticing two maids in the corridor, Elena asked them why the Duke did not come to her room. Could something have happened that she didn't know about? "It's all thanks to us. We've been waiting for you to figure it out for yourselves. We'll make sure you don't see each other from now on. We told the Duke that you were ill and asked him not to visit you until you were fully recovered." The maids answered. "Get Steward Ben and Maid Lulu here," ordered Elena. Elena looked angrily at the maids. An entire week had been lost because of them. Why did they suddenly think she wouldn't be happy around the Duke? Why did they start prying into their master's business? "Ben, how do you think I should punish these maids for their provocation?" Helena asked the steward. "If you follow the house's internal rules, you can even cut off their tongues," Ben replied in a calm voice. "Mistress, we were wrong. We beg you to have mercy. We have made a huge mistake!" screamed the maids, falling to their knees. 5 lashes, 2 days without food, and a whole week of meek obedience. Take them away. Elena felt sorry for the maids, but she couldn't leave them without punishment either. These 2 girls have been working here for a very long time. They serve at the Duke's pleasure, Ben remarked. Ben, is the Duke here now? Helena asked. Ben motioned for the girl to walk her to the Duke's office. Elena knocked on the Duke's office, and without waiting for an answer, entered. The Duke looked at his wife in surprise. He did not expect her to come to him unannounced. The girl's whole appearance said that she was quite serious. Why the hell would they think it's some kind of devil's mark? I don't see anything special, thought Elena, scrutinizing the Duke's birthmark. The girl reached out and gently touched the mark on the Duke's face. I apologize for touching you without asking your permission. Does it hurt you when I touch your birthmark? Asked Elena. No, it doesn't hurt me at all. It only surprises me since it happens very suddenly, confessed the Duke. I want to confess to you that before coming here, I punished 2 maids, said Elena. I heard about it, and I even know the reason, said the Duke, which extremely surprised the girl. She didn't expect that in this big house news spread with such a great speed. So, I want to assure you that I am completely fine and have no pain. I've been worried about you for several nights. I expected you to come to me. And to be honest, I'm not in the habit of falling asleep alone. If you understand, I will wait for you tonight. Having spoken to the Duke, Elena darted out of his office. She had always been incredibly shy in unfamiliar places at first. But this time, the girl decided to put aside her shyness because she had a world to save. Sitting up in bed, Elena listened to every rustle. Finally, the creak of the door opening was heard. The Duke entered the room. How tall he is, after all. When he sat in the chair today, he didn't seem so big to me. Will everything be all right? No, everything should be fine. In any case, I have no other choice. Elena thought fearfully. The Duke carefully climbed onto the bed. Are you sure you want to sleep with me tonight? The Duke asked the girl. Elena didn't understand why he was asking questions with obvious answers. They are spouses, so they should sleep together. The Duke reached for the lamp to turn out the light. He's right. It's probably best to do it in the dark. He's deliberately darkening the room to create atmosphere. And why hasn't he taken off his shirt yet? Elena thought to herself. Duke, are you going to sleep with your clothes on? Asked the girl. I am more comfortable sleeping with my clothes on, replied the Duke. Kaywin turned out the light and lay on his side. Elena looked at him in surprise. She had expected him to show at least some interest in her. This was far from what they wrote about in the novels at all. After a while, Elena heard a steady sniffle. She realized that the Duke had fallen asleep. How am I supposed to get pregnant now? Am I totally uninterested in him? Elena thought to herself as she fell asleep. When Elena woke up, there was no one around. The girl touched the pillow with her hand. It was still warm, so the Duke had left recently. Elena wanted to have breakfast with her husband, but he was not in the dining room. Ben explained that the Duke usually skipped breakfast or just had a snack in his office. In the evening, the Duke came to his wife's room again, and after wishing her a good night, simply went to bed. And how many more nights will he come to me to just sleep? Is this really how all spouses live? Are we just going to do nothing? How can I give him a hint? Elena thought. A few nights later, the Duke told Elena that even though they were spouses, he wouldn't touch her. Well, if you won't touch me, then I'll do it myself. Yelena shouted and started undoing the buttons on her husband's shirt. Hey, wait, what are you doing? Kaywin exclaimed. Can't you see undressing you? Replied Elena. Kaywin wrapped the girl in a blanket and held her tightly against him. The girl tried to break free, but she failed. Don't kick, let's go to sleep, said the Duke. The girl tried to break free again, but failed miserably and ended up sleeping soundly. Elena looked into the basin of washing, filled to the brim with water. She had a wild desire to drown herself in it. It was absolutely incomprehensible to her why the Duke didn't want children. Why was he avoiding her? Tell me, am I ugly? Helena asked the maid. Why do you ask that? You are very beautiful and extremely charming. Your eyes are like blossoming buds, fresh and alluring, and your silver hair shines like stars in the night sky," replied the maid. "Your facial features are very harmonious. Your eyes are large, your gaze gentle, your nose high and neat, in a word, perfect balance. Your lips are moderately full, and you need no lipstick, for they are a lovely color. If the maid is telling the truth now, then I am indeed very attractive. Then the problem is not with me. We need to find out from the Duke what's stopping him. If there's a problem, it needs to be solved." Elena thought. "Tell the Duke to join me for lunch if he's not busy. No, tell him to eat with me even if he has some business to attend to," said Elena to the maid. When Elena came to the dining room at lunchtime, the Duke was already there. "Going to the dining room, I was going to sit close to the Duke, but coming here I can't even look him in the eyes. Still, I've taken on the impossible," Elena thought sadly. "And how am I supposed to look him in the eye after yesterday? He obviously thought I was some kind of fool. And I'd love to forget what happened yesterday, but what happened keeps popping up in my mind." "About yesterday, did you really want that?" the Duke asked unexpectedly. "Yes, and I apologize for my actions if they hurt you in any way," replied Elena. "No need to apologize," said the Duke. "You see, it's been over 3 weeks since our marriage ceremony, with our first night. Well, it hasn't happened yet. Could you please answer me how long I have to wait?" asked Elena, blushing. "Your family demands grandchildren, but you also have a brother and sister. Do they have a problem in that regard? I absolutely don't understand why you need children. On top of that, there's no clause in the marriage contract that says you must have an heir," reminded the Duke. "I'm well aware of all that, but I believe that you can't build a proper family without having a child, and I would like to try to build a complete family." Elena lied. She couldn't tell the Duke that his child could save the world. "I'm sorry, but I can't give you what you want so badly." Lowering his eyes, the Duke replied. "What are you talking about now? You can't spend the night with me? But why? Give me a reason. Don't you like me?" exclaimed Elena. The girl was frightened. Had the old woman deceived her? "No, she hasn't. To clear up this misunderstanding, I'll tell you honestly, you are not the problem," answered Kaiwin. "But I still won't back down. I'll push for what I want, and eventually he'll give in at some point. Whether he wants it or not, I'll still get pregnant even if I have to jump him," Elena decided firmly. Elena went to the library to find books that would help her seduce the Duke. Elena finally found 3 volumes of a book called The World of Matrimony. "This is it! This is exactly what I need right now," the girl exclaimed. Elena did not let the book out of her hands throughout the night. In the morning, she was very sleepy, but satisfied. After reading literally 5 chapters, the girl discovered a new world. In order not to frighten the maids, Elena tried to pretend that she was fine. The sleepy Elena was once again rocked and hit her forehead on the coffee table with all her might. "Mistress, are you all right? I heard a terrible crashing noise," screamed a maid who burst into the room. Elena assured her that everything was fine and asked her to leave. "What on earth am I doing? And it's all because of him. If he hadn't said something like that in the dining room, I wouldn't have acted like a fool. Aren't spouses supposed to fulfill their marital duty?" mumbled Elena. "Right. I'll start applying what I read about in the book tonight. I should be able to do it." Elena stormed into her husband's office and asked if he could give her some attention. The girl noticed that the Duke rarely smiled. His face was constantly serious and focused. The first thing she decided to do was to replace his impassive face with one that was radiant with a smile. "Do you remember the words you said in the dining room? You promised me that you'd listen to anything I wanted to talk about, just as long as it didn't involve a marital relationship," reminded Elena. "Then 1, let me come to your office whenever I want to. 2, don't chase me away. I'll leave on my own. And 3, I want to hear praise from you regularly. You can praise my looks or point out how beautiful I am." Helena climbed onto the Duke's desk, lifted her skirt, and began to swing her leg from side to side. She was sure it was bound to embarrass him. Or do you think I'm not pretty after all? Not at all. You are very beautiful, replied the Duke, looking intently into the girl's eyes. Suddenly, Helena's hand slipped and she stood up, falling backwards. The Duke jumped up from his seat and picked the girl up. Are you all right? Asked the Duke. I'm fine. Thank you for helping me, not letting me fall, replied Elena. You know what I was thinking? You're pretty cute enough, too. You have beautiful eyes, a straight nose, an attractive outline of lips. And you know what else I was thinking? You've never called me by my first name before. Do you remember it? Elena. And now your full name is Elena Mayhad. I'm going to ask that you call me by my first name when we're alone together. By the way, you don't have to come to my bedroom anymore, said Elena. She hurriedly left the Duke's office as she felt embarrassed that he finally called her by her name. A few days later, deep in the night, Elena picked up a lantern and walked out into the hallway. Where are you going? Asked a guard standing in the hallway. The girl answered him that she couldn't sleep, so she decided to walk around the house. Today is just the perfect day to pounce on him. I haven't been to his office for a few days, so he must have relaxed a bit. All the consequences have been carefully considered. The important thing is not to miss the moment, thought Elena. The girl entered her husband's room and closed the door tightly behind her. The Duke was sleeping soundly. He did not hear the girl's approach. Elena carefully climbed onto the bed. Hearing a rustle, the Duke opened his eyes. A moment later, Elena was wrapped tightly in a blanket. She couldn't move an arm or a leg. Damn, well, there has to be some way. It's not like I can tell anyone about my dream. No one will believe me. Demonic creatures haven't attacked for several hundred years. They've long since been forgotten about. Also, the old woman is gone. I don't even have anyone to ask for advice now. By the way, I'm very good at drawing, so I can draw a portrait of the old woman. I will show it to everyone and anyone. Maybe someone has seen her somewhere. Having found the old woman, I will make her answer all the questions that interest me. Suddenly, a bee appeared in front of the girl's face. Elena began to scrutinize it carefully. The bee was quite large and very different from its congeners. What are you staring at? The bee asked unexpectedly. Elena gave a frightened squeal. She involuntarily took a step back and tripped over a rock and began to fall on her back. Suddenly, a blonde-haired guy appeared next to the girl and picked her up by the waist. Are you okay? Asked the guy. I'm fine. Thanks for your help, mumbled Elena. This was the first time she had ever seen this blonde-haired guy. It's a pleasure to meet you, Duchess. I arrived at the palace today and I've already heard a lot about you. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Inkan Marjong. You are Viscount Marjong? Elena clarified. The girl had heard that he came to the palace twice a year and brought medicinal plants with him. These herbs were much needed by the Duke. Back in her room, Elena asked her maid to tell her everything she knew about Viscount Inkan Marjong. Inkan Marjong is currently 27 years old. He is the second son of the Viscount's family. He still has an older sister and a younger brother. He is currently unmarried. He has a good reputation. He is kind to people lower in status, not greedy. Rumor has it that he has ceded the position of successor to his older sister. There's no more information about him at the moment. When Elena was near the Viscount, she felt goosebumps running through her body. Therefore, the girl decided to go to her husband to understand why she reacted like that. The girl decided to sit directly next to her husband. Elena sat next to her husband for a few minutes. There were no goosebumps. Elena, is something wrong? The Duke asked. He was tired of sitting in complete silence. Please take my hand, asked the girl. The Duke held out his hand to the girl. Elena wrapped hers around it and squeezed it tightly. The goosebumps were still gone. Still, his hands are quite soft. There are small calluses on his fingers from the pen. Most likely he's been working a lot lately. There are also calluses on the palms of his hands. He's a swordsman, so nothing surprising, thought Elena, looking at her spouse's hand. Elena, is there something on my hand? Inquired the Duke. Nothing like that. I was just looking at them. Unlike my hands, your hands are quite large, Elena exclaimed. By the way, I have one rather simple request for you. Grab me just above the elbow. And don't be afraid. I'm not up to anything. It's just an experiment. The Duke took his consort's arm just above the elbow, as she requested. The girl was pleased with the Duke's touch, but there were no goosebumps. "All right, thank you for your help. I'll be off then. I have no more requests for you." Elena rose from her seat and walked out of the office. The girl was frustrated that she never got to find out why she felt goosebumps all over her body when the Viscount touched her. She had never reacted that way to her husband. Suddenly, the girl heard two maids talking. She hid around the corner and listened intently. And, after all, his reputation is good, and outwardly he is meek. However, I found out that it is quite the opposite. I was told that he is a human trafficker. As soon as I found out about it, I immediately wanted to run away. When I touched him accidentally, goosebumps ran down my body. Usually, goosebumps indicate that a person is involuntarily experiencing danger, so be careful with him. A woman's instincts never fail. This man is very dangerous. As soon as you see him in the corridor, then immediately run. "Duchess, what are you doing here?" the Viscount asked the girl. Out of surprise, Elena cried out. "I beg your pardon, did I frighten you? Honestly, I didn't mean to do that." "No, it's fine, I was just brooding. You caught me off guard." Helena held her hands up in the air, disarmed. "Are you going to the dining room? If so, let me escort you," said the Viscount. Elena involuntarily recalled the maid's words. They said that this man was extremely dangerous, and that one should run away from him at once and without looking back. "I'm sorry, but I just realized that I have absolutely no appetite. But you go ahead and eat. And I think I'll go," said the girl, and turned around and went to her room. Goosebumps. A woman's instinct. Something I doubt all of this. Maybe there's some kind of mistake here? This man's neighborhood speaks very well of him. His reputation is perfect. Elena thought on the way to her room. She was very doubtful about the Viscount. Turning around, Elena noticed that the Viscount was following her. The Viscount had all but talked the girl into joining the meal. I've been thinking for hours now about whether the Viscount is a good man or a bad one after all. These burdensome thoughts are eating me up inside. I must get to grips with the matter. I must know for sure whether I should trust this man or not. I need to follow him. But the rumors about the Duke have been exaggerated as well. I keep hearing he's a monster, but he acts really nice. I don't even believe in his curse. Well, if the Viscount is still the culprit, then by figuring him out, I can prevent casualties. When I resolve the issue with the Viscount by securing the people of the estate, then my husband will finally want to have children with me. He will be grateful to me for saving him. It's decided I will bring the Viscount out into the open. Back in her room, Elena asked her maid to find out as much as she could about Viscount Incan Marjong. It had to be discreet to find out what he was doing staying at the Duke's estate. Elena held out the old woman's portrait to the maid to give to the steward. The girl was ready to spend money to find the old woman, so that in the end she could get answers to all her questions. The next day, Elena had to have breakfast with the Viscount. As the mistress of the house, she had to pay attention to her guest. "I see the Duke isn't at the table. He must be very busy," asked the Viscount. "Why, are you upset that the Duke isn't here?" said Elena, and smiled sweetly. Suddenly the Viscount drops the teacup. With a loud clinking sound, it fell apart into several pieces. The maid hurried to remove the shards, but the Viscount said he would do it himself. Elena noticed that the maid was blushing very red. She wondered why she reacted that way. "Every time I'm amazed at how skillful your cooks are. Yes, I envy His Excellency's insight," said the Viscount. Helena enjoyed hearing nice words about her husband. She noted that her spouse's insight was indeed quite exceptional. "And I also noticed that the management of the garden is also top-notch. How would you feel about taking a little walk after the meal?" asked the Viscount, to which the girl happily agreed. Talking to the Viscount one-on-one, she could learn a great deal from him. "You come to the estate every time for the supply of medicinal plants. Isn't it difficult for you to travel such a long distance? Wouldn't it be better and easier to transfer the medicinal plants through someone?" inquired Elena to the Viscount. "I'm fine. It's not a burden to me. It's my personal desire. If I entrust someone else to deliver medicinal plants, then I will then lose the job that brings me pleasure," replied the Viscount. "Regardless of gender and age, all people need medicines. I enjoy delivering medicinal herbs around the kingdom. This way I have the opportunity to socialize with different people and learn their stories. I also keep them alive. I feel a responsibility to deliver such important things. That probably sounds ridiculous, right? To feel responsible for something that anyone can do. It's not funny at all. It's an extremely important goal and a laudable desire. If you enjoy it, and you're doing a noble deed that benefits those around you, then it's commendable," Helena replied. "Have you come to this garden again?" asked a bee that flew up to the girl. With a loud screech, Elena began to fall backwards. The Viscount ran up to the girl, and picking her up by the shoulders, gently holding her up, set her on her feet. "I have noticed that you stumble very often. You should be more careful. If no one is around, you could fall and hurt yourself badly." Elena felt goosebumps run through her body again. It was an extremely unpleasant feeling. Back in the house, Elena asked Garner to find a large bee and chase it out of the garden. "Madam, as you ordered, I have gathered information about Viscount Incan Marjong. Overall, there is nothing suspicious except for one thing. I don't know if it has anything to do with your request, but still. It has come to my attention that after the Viscount visited a particular estate, the maids were dismissed within 2 months, one by one. I have even managed to find records from these estates." The maid handed Elena several sheets of paper. Elena began to scrutinize the dates of delivery of medicinal plants and the dates the maids were dismissed. Some maids were dismissed after 6 weeks, while others were dismissed after exactly 2 months. Elena motioned for the head maid to be called to her. "I want to ask you about these maids. They all worked here and quit, right? Maybe you remember the moment they quit? What was the reason they quit?" Elena asked. Lowering her head low, Lula began to recount each maid's dismissal. No one knows exactly the true reasons for their dismissal. They all said that circumstances occurred that made it necessary to return to their homeland. Some had a relative fall ill, while in others there had been a fire or the family had gone bankrupt. Elena gathered all the maids of the house to tell her about the girls who had quit. They all had one thing in common. They weren't from around here. I remembered something strange. One of the girls who quit looked extremely strange. She was constantly throwing up, said one of the maids. "Vomiting, you say? Okay, you can go ahead. I'll take it from here," mumbled Elena. She had an idea. The next day, Elena went to the Viscount's room. He was extremely surprised to see her on the doorstep. "I would like to consult with you on a matter of concern to me. Do you have time for me? I didn't come to you empty-handed. I have an elite alcoholic drink with me," said Elena. The Viscount let the girl into the room. "Isn't it a little early for alcohol?" asked the Viscount. "Well, without alcohol, I'm not likely to be able to open up to you about my experiences." Elena closed the curtains so no one would peek. "Well, tell me what is bothering you so much that you decided to come to me," said the Viscount, taking a seat in the chair across from the girl. "Nothing much. However, it will be difficult if this information reaches the Duke's ears. You are the only outsider in this house, and I've also heard that you know how to keep your mouth shut." Elena poured the wine into glasses. "If I happen to be wrong about you, you'd better tell me now." Elena motioned the wine glass to the Viscount. "Very well. I will listen to you and take this secret with me. No one will ever know what you and I talked about," the Viscount promised. Elena knew that this alcohol was quite strong, so she drank a little, pouring more on the towel she had laid on her lap. Already after 10 minutes, the Viscount was very drunk. "So, what's troubling you? Why did you come here?" the Viscount asked in a slurred tongue. "You see, the problem is the children. And in general, how shall I put it? The problem is no longer the making of a child. I hope you understand what I'm talking about now," Helena muttered. "And if I solve your worries, what will you do for me?" asked the Viscount. "And what would you like to receive? I can give you anything," said the girl. "Very well. That is a matter you and I will discuss a little later. I just have a medicine that helps you get pregnant. With this medicine, you can get pregnant without even having intercourse with a man, said the Viscount and smiled slyly. And how is it even possible to get pregnant without doing anything? Is it possible? Asked the girl. I understand you want to have a child that will inherit the title of Duke, but you don't want to carry a child from a monster, said the Viscount. Incan had seen how his mother suffered after marrying out of convenience. She constantly harbored resentments, crying quietly at night. Even though the woman tried not to show her condition to her son, her pain and resentment still came out. Incan loved his mother very much and was very upset when he learned that she was seriously ill. Before she died, Incan's mother told him that it would have been better if he had been born completely like her, not mixed with his father's blood. Since then, the thought had come to the boy that he would not allow people like him to be made. I have a cure that allows you to get pregnant without communicating with men. It's already been tested and has amazing results, exclaimed the Viscount. And if it's no secret, on whom have you tested your remedy? Who has already tested its effects on themselves? Have you experimented on a human being? Asked Elena. No, you don't think so. I won't spread false rumors about your experiment, but it is difficult for me to check into the effects without clarification. The Viscount admitted that he gave his medicine to the maids. Afterward, they all became pregnant. What this man has done is extremely disgusting, and he probably doesn't even realize the horror of what he has done, Elena thought to herself. Speaking on the right, I'm very surprised that there is such a cure. I'll have to think about it. As soon as I make up my mind, I will immediately send a man to you. Elena rose from her seat. She had already learned everything. There was no point in staying in the Viscount's room anymore. Where are you going? And the payment? You must pay me for the information. The Viscount grabbed the girl's arm tightly. Quickly let me go. You are very drunk now. We will talk to you when you're sober, Elena exclaimed. I have a medicine that will help neutralize the effects of alcohol. The Viscount took out a small vial and drank its contents. That's it, I'm completely sober now. Duchess, I know exactly what I want from you. I'm sure you want the same thing. Yesterday, while you were with me, didn't you stare at me intently? In fact, I've been thinking about you ever since we first met. You have looks that one would be sorry to give to a monster. It must not be easy for you to forcibly play the role of a monster's consort. It must be beyond your comprehension, making you anxious. I understand all your hardships and agonies. Will you shut up already? Elena shouted and kicked the Viscount in the stomach. The girl was tired of him constantly calling her spouse a monster. Guards, led by Abby's maid, burst into the room. Elena and Abby had paired magic bracelets. Every 5 minutes, Abby's bracelet would receive a signal. As soon as the signal stopped, the maid hurriedly intervened. The absence of a signal was a call to action. Elena summoned Duke and Manager Ben and told them everything. I absolutely don't understand what the problem is. Do you have proof that the maids did not give their consent to the experiment? Said the Viscount to the girl. You have no idea what you've done. The poor girls didn't understand how they managed to get pregnant. You just ruined their lives. You purposely chose the newcomers so they couldn't tell anything or anyone, Elena exclaimed. You have nothing on me, and consequently, if you untie me, I will not spread the word about this incident. Nor will I accuse you of physically harming me, the Viscount promised. I remember you were planning to return home in 2 days. We have time to find evidence. You will be under lock and key for the entire 2 days. The Duke ordered his guards to lock the Viscount in his room. The very next day, they managed to find the doctor who monitored the condition of the pregnant girls. It was he who encouraged them to return to their homeland. The doctor convinced the girls that they should not give birth far from home. He persuaded them to return home, quietly give birth, and raise their child. The doctor also persuaded the girls not to terminate the pregnancy. He frightened them that this would bring a curse upon themselves. When she met her husband in the corridor of the manor, the girl pressed him against the wall. She was tired of beating around the bush. She wanted to know the truth. I want to know the reason why you're not spending the night with me. Do you really think your darkness will transfer onto me? Are you sure there's a curse on you? No, I don't believe in a curse. There is another reason, and I have one favor to ask of you. Show me your wrists, asked the Duke. Elena held out her hand to the Duke. Pulling the sleeve of her dress up, the Duke noticed a large bruise on the girl's arm. Did Incan do that? How come you bruised your arm? Asked the Duke. Elena stood frowning. She did not want to tell her husband about what happened in the room to the Viscount. It was unlikely he would like her actions. Still, she had managed to expose the culprit, so there was nothing to be ashamed of. I thought that if I accomplished the greatest feat, you would let me be by your side, so I took the risk of acting on my own. I really want you to come to my bedroom as early as tonight, exclaimed the girl. By dinner time, the Viscount confessed that he had traveled from manor to manor, collecting maids for his experiment. The number of victims numbered more than 20. It was decided to send the Viscount to his home. His father had to decide what to do with him next. In the evening, the Duke came to his consort's chambers to treat her bruise. "Are you not hurt?" the Duke asked, gently rubbing the ointment into the bruised skin. Elena noted to herself again that her husband was very gentle. He absolutely did not resemble a monster. "And tell me a little about yourself. When did you start learning fencing?" asked Elena. "I first picked up a sword when I was 6 years old. I confess it was not easy at all," replied the Duke. "Surely you must have been very cute and clumsy. Didn't anyone ever tell you that?" Laughing merrily, Elena asked. "And you know what else I was thinking? I'm 19 years old at this point, and you're already 24. There's a 5-year difference between us. What a good number that is, after all. They say that if a couple has a 5-year age difference, it's easier for them to get along in marriage. What's more, they say their child will be a gifted genius, a man who will save the world or something like that. Anyway, I've got an idea how you and I can save the world." "It's late. Go to bed," said the Duke and turned out the light. "Okay, I'll retreat for tonight," grumbled Elena. "By the way, what about that asshole Incan? Did he confess how he created the cure? It was alchemy or sheer magic. If he wasn't an aristocrat, he'd definitely be called the devil and burned at the stake." Under interrogation, Incan admitted that he created a medicine based on animal blood. The only thing is, he never said which animal he used. But I hope we will still be able to find out the composition of his medicine, replied the Duke. "Lady, have you heard the latest news regarding Viscount Incan Marjong?" Madame Gashif asked. She was a woman who loved to gather all the rumors of the world. Ladies who were bored with their ordinary lives looked forward to meeting her. "So, a rumor has reached me that when the Viscount was returning home, an unfortunate thing happened to him. He was badly wounded. Rumor has it that he had an accident from a collision with a monster during a carriage ride. It happened near the border with the Duchy of Mahad. I think the Duke will have to pay the damages, although the Viscount had his knight with him, but he couldn't do anything to help him." "Oh, what good are those knights? I think we should take mercenaries with us. They are more reliable," the ladies exclaimed. At the moment, the Viscount's life is not in any danger, however. There are rumors that he has lost a very important body part. It is said that the Viscount kept some medicinal herbs in his pants. It was these that attracted the monster, narrated Madame Gashif. Hearing the latest gossip regarding the Viscount, Elena rushed to her husband's office. Near her husband's office, Elena saw a young boy. He was dressed in the clothes of a guard, but the girl had never seen him before. "Are you the new guy? State your first and last name," demanded Elena. The young man answered her that his name was Hast Ranner. "I arrived at your manor quite recently. Yes, of this one I served under a truly terrible man. I am grateful to the Duke for giving me a chance to rid myself of the disgrace. I have decided to be loyal to him and devote myself to him," exclaimed Hast, putting his hand on his heart. "I wonder, and where did he serve before this? Who was his previous master? Was he really terrible?" thought to herself to Elena. The Duke came out of the study and suggested that his wife take a little walk. Walking through the garden, Elena noted to herself that the gardeners had done their best. The garden looked wonderful. It was drowned in the aromas of various flowers. Looking at her husband, Elena guessed that he had called her for a reason. He had something to say to her. It seemed that he had been thinking about this conversation for a long time. The Duke motioned for his wife to take a seat on the bench. "Admit it, aren't you scared to spend time with me?" asked Kaiwin to his spouse. "What should I be afraid of?" In a surprised voice, the girl inquired. "Be that as it may, I want to assure you that I will never do you any harm. However, I have no power to control the curse." Kaiwin replied. "There he goes again, talking about the curse. I thought he told me he didn't believe in any curse. What's going on now?" Elena thought in surprise. "If you think I believe the rumors going around the kingdom about you, I don't. And I don't understand at all why you're always lying and twisting. Why can't you just give me a reason why you're estranged?" screamed the girl. "I didn't distance myself from you because some rumor bothers me. And I want to assure you that I have never lied to you. However, I know very well that many people avoid me and even fear me. So I ask you, aren't you afraid?" repeated the Duke his question. "No, I am not afraid to socialize with you at all. I have one question for you. Are you afraid that the mark on your face might transfer to another person?" asked Elena. "If I am, it's even better. When the mark crosses over to me, then we can safely say it's a disease. And everyone knows that all diseases are cured by medicine." "I like the Eastern Garden very much," suddenly the Duke said. Elena realized that he wanted to change the topic of conversation. "When I was a child, the gardener who tended this place was very negligent in his duties. There were always huge untended bushes growing here. They were so thick that if you hid in them, no one would ever find you. And when I wanted no one to see me, I would hide in those bushes. It was the only place I could be alone. I didn't really think people were afraid of me because of the curse. I thought they hated me for no reason. When I grew up, I realized that there were a lot of rumors going around, and that's why people were afraid of me. I don't want my child to be born with the same stigma I had. I don't want him to repeat my fate. That's why I don't want to have children at all." "You don't want to have children because of your difficult childhood? There's no other reason," clarified Helena. The Duke didn't answer the girl anything. He just looked at her with sad eyes. "Abi, and tell me about the former Duke and Duchess," asked Elena to the maid. "The current Duke's parents, the previous Duke and Duchess Mayhud, passed away early in life. They were gone when Mr. Hywin turned 16 years old. After that, he inherited the title of Duke," narrated the maid. "I didn't serve them, so I don't know them personally. The servants who have been working here for a long time tell me that the late Duke and Duchess were good people. They say they were kind and generous, always sympathetic to the younger staff. The Duchess was very fond of both her sons. She didn't care at all what people said about her eldest son. She didn't believe in his curse." Helena asked to have Ben's manager called in to see her. Abi told her that he had been working on the estate the longest. Helena hoped Ben would tell her a lot more about the late Duke and Duchess than Abi did. "Ben, I have been told that you have been working at the house for over 30 years. That is to say, you have been watching the current Duke since he was born. Tell me, what was his childhood like? Did he grow up in the love of his parents?" asked Elena. "Forgive me, madam, but I cannot tell you about that," replied the steward. No matter how much the girl begged, he was adamant. "Oh, where else would I find someone to tell me about my husband's childhood?" Elena thought to herself. "I used to think it had nothing to do with me. I never thought about what if a child has the same stigma as his father. What kind of conditions would it grow up and live in? I only thought about how to give life to a future hero. I thought I would give birth and that would be the end of my mission. But now I realize that before I became a warrior, this child will be my son. It will be my baby boy. I will be a mother. But it will be okay. I'm getting myself worked up for nothing. I'll be able to raise my child to be a decent human being. And I don't care at all what other people say about my baby. I'll be sure to protect him from those around him." The next morning, Ben, entering the girl's room, announced that he had succeeded in finding the old woman after all. "Tell me, who are you?" Elena asked the old woman. The woman sitting in front of her had a different demeanor from the one Elena had seen in the hut. It seemed to the girl that they were completely two different people. "I'm just an old woman with an unusual talent," the woman replied. "Please help me. Give my husband a glimpse of the future and a way to prevent it." Elena walked over to the old woman and took her hand. "Nothing will work. Even if I show the Duke the future, nothing will change." "What do you mean? Why won't anything change? People's lives depend on it, and yet you say you can't help." Helena wondered. The girl really hoped that if the old woman showed her husband the future, he would change his attitude towards her. "I already told you that a hero will be born only after the fusion of two souls. I meant that two loving hearts must beat in unison. If these rules are not followed, the child will not appear." The old woman replied, "I have already told you all I can. Now let's end this. I have to go," said the old woman, rising from her seat. Elena still wanted to question the old woman about many things, but the old woman ordered her to sleep. The girl felt that after the old woman's words and her eyelids became heavy, she began to slowly fall asleep. "There, still a cunning old woman, all the time disappears without answering my questions," grumbled Elena. "I still don't know if I can prevent my relatives from dying, and if so, what I need to do so. How can I change the fate of my relatives? At this point, I don't know what to do at all. The only thing I have learned is that a child must be born in love. Without love, nothing will work out. But couldn't that have been said in the beginning? Who needs that miserable love now?" Ben walked into Helena's room and announced that they needed to discuss the amount of compensation as soon as possible. "And what kind of compensation are we talking about now?" Elena clarified. "It could be stock or a certificate to run the business. Master has instructed me to fulfill Madam's wish in the best way possible, since Master is going to offer you a divorce, so—" Ben started to explain, but Elena hurriedly interrupted him. "Now quickly answer me. Where is the Duke now?" exclaimed the girl. She set the cup on the saucer with a clatter. What kind of divorce were we even talking about? "What on earth are you thinking? Are you going to divorce me?" yelled Elena, burst into her husband's office. "We've been married for less than 6 months, so we can dissolve our marriage without any problems," replied the Duke. "Wait, you decided to throw me out of this house so easily? Do you really hate me that much?" Elena continued angrily. "No, I don't. I don't know why you decided that, but that's not the reason. I thought you were the one who wouldn't want to continue our marriage because I can't give you what you want," explained the Duke. "I understood your message perfectly. You want a normal family and a child. You probably even married before you had children. I think your goal in getting married is children. I've told you more than once that I don't intend to have children. That's why I want to free you from the shackles of our marriage. You're wrong if you think I'm going to give up that easily. No matter what happens in the future, there's no way we're ending our marriage. I won't change my words, so remember that well," Elena exclaimed. "So are those all the reasons you want to end our marriage? Or are you not happy with our married life?" "I like our marriage, and I'm generally happy with everything. You're a good wife, and you're doing a great job with the household," Kaiwin replied. "Well, since that's the end of it, I'll be going. I think I have made my position clear to you," said the girl, and left her husband's office. "What's up with this, deciding to dissolve our marriage? You attacked the wrong one. I'm not backing down. To be honest, I never thought he could actually divorce me," resented Elena, sitting up on the bed. "Usually, marriage between aristocrats is tied to the interests of both parties. But in my case, I'm just Miel's replacement. So my husband can ask my uncle to change the contract. But that won't happen. I won't let that happen. I will continue to fight for my spouse's love. I need to come up with a plan that will help me to rouse the Duke." Elena's first order of business was to leave the manor for a few days. The Duke let her go very easily. It even offended the girl a little. Did he really not care about her? Elena decided to go to visit her old friend Countess Rosalind Max. They hadn't seen each other for several years. I was recently told that you got married. I also learned that you replaced your cousin Maëlle. Is that true? And if you want, I can help you break up this marriage, offered Rosalind. So that's what I look like in other people's eyes. They see me as a victim who had to marry a monster. Her friend's words hurt Elena. Rosalind, do I really look like someone who would agree to an unwanted marriage? And by the way, did you prepare what I asked you to do? Asked Elena to her friend. Elena asked her friend to stay out of it, whatever was going on. Elena, promise me that you won't hurt anyone in my house, asked Rosalind. Elena promised her that she wouldn't lay a finger on anyone. Rosalind, who is this lady? Asked the lady of the house, a girl in a pink dress. Allow me to introduce. This is Duchess Mayhad, replied Rosalind. I had such a hard time restraining myself from knocking over this table. Sighing heavily, Elena said as the girl in pink walked away. Honestly, I never thought it would be so hard to spread rumors. I have to convince people that I love my husband very much and enjoy my married life. I want them to believe that my husband is very caring. And why do you want these rumors? Rosalind asked. Elena really hoped that her husband wouldn't get divorced, knowing that their divorce could negatively affect her. The girl had already noticed that her spouse knew better than anyone the power of rumors. Kaywin will not let the gossip hurt Elena. A little later, I'll be sure to tell you why I'm spreading these rumors, but right now I need your advice. Tell me what it takes to make someone fall in love with you, asked Elena. Wait, you're a married lady want to seduce some man? Surprised Rosalind. Rosalind, I know you are the queen of dating. You didn't get that nickname for nothing. You're the only one who can help me. Okay, I'll help you, but you have to realize that every man is affected by different seduction tactics. You must tell me about the qualities of the man you want to seduce, said Rosalind. He is loving, kind, caring. He will listen to me about anything. He's also very sensitive. If I'm hiding something, he guesses it right away. He even notices the bruises on my body and personally treats my wounds. Elena replied, Are you saying that you doubt that the man who cares so much about you loves you? Clarified Rosalind. He's avoiding me, Elena admitted. If I understand you correctly, you've decided to seduce your husband? I knew it. Your marriage isn't easy. And if I understand correctly, you did marry for love, but the Duke doesn't reciprocate. Rosalind said thoughtfully, I might advise you to be more assertive. Have you heard the expression, the closeness of bodies awakens the feelings in the heart? I've tried that. It doesn't work, Helena grumbled. So it turns out you pounced on your husband, but in the end you never got him. I have a few ideas. You should definitely try them out. Rosalind rubbed her chin thoughtfully. When Elena entered the house, she was greeted on the doorstep by the manager, Ben. You should rest. You must be tired after your trip. Would you like me to have a bath prepared for you? Ben asked. Elena refused. The first thing she wanted to do was to see the Duke. Elena remembered that when her father returned from a trip, the first thing he always did was look for his wife to kiss her on the cheek. Elena didn't plan on kissing her husband. She just wanted to tell him she was back. Outside the Duke's study, Elena was stopped by a maid. She told her that the Duke had decided to go to bed early tonight. My husband doesn't sleep much. He usually goes to bed late at night. Why did he decide to go to bed early tonight? Is he not feeling well? Elena thought to herself and hurried to her husband's bedroom. I apologize, madam, but the Duke asked not to let anyone in, said the guard. Elena was very surprised, for the Duke never put guards near his door. What had happened to him while she was away? Ben, the steward, approached the Duke's bedroom. The girl asked him if the Duke was well. He's fine, just a common cold. I'll give him some medicine now, and by tomorrow I think the illness will recede, replied the steward. If he is ill, I can look after my husband myself. Trust it to me. Elena wanted to take the basin of water and towels from the manager, but he wouldn't let her. The manager explained that the disease was very contagious. He didn't want to risk her health. "But if this disease is very contagious, then you definitely can't go in there. You're an older man, you're more hard on colds," Elena exclaimed. "You do a lot more work than I do. Who's going to do all this if you go down? Stop stalling and give me the basin of water. Do you really think we should fight over this?" Elena pulled at the basin, but the steward wouldn't let go. The steward asked the guard to detain the Duchess, and he himself entered the Duke's bedroom. "This is strange. I'm not allowed, but the butler is. Ben said it was an ordinary cold, but he acted as if the Duke was ill with some deadly disease," grumbled Elena, sitting in her room. "I should check out what's going on in there. For some reason, I feel like there's something in this house that's hiding from me." Elena grabbed a flashlight and went outside. She headed towards the windows of the Duke's bedroom. The windows of the Duke's bedroom were very high off the ground. The last time Elena had climbed the walls was when she was 12 years old. Leaning on tree branches, Helena still managed to climb up to the balcony. Suddenly, the girl felt her hand slipping off the railing. The Duke, who had suddenly appeared, managed to catch her hand. "Elena, what are you doing on the railing of my balcony?" Kaiwin asked. The Duke took his consort in his arms and carried her to his bedroom. Carrying the girl into the room, he sat her down on a chair. "Elena, have a conscience. What would have happened now if I hadn't gotten there in time? You could have been seriously injured. Do you realize that?" the Duke asked the girl. From his tone, Elena realized that the current situation irritated him. "Have you thought about the fact that you could have broken your arm? What's wrong with your arm? You could have broken your leg or hurt your head." "I'm sorry, I was wrong. And don't be mad at me again, please," the girl whispered. "I'm not angry. I was just scared and worried that my consort might hurt herself," explained the Duke. "I did it because I was worried too. I saw Ben bring you water and towels, but he forbade me to come in here. But I'm your wife. Why can't I take care of you when you're sick?" Elena was indignant. "Or do you think that by being in the same room with you, I'm going to start hitting on you again? I told you I won't do that again. Now please allow only me and the manager into your room." Elena could see that her spouse was not feeling well. She went over to him and put her hand on his forehead. The Duke was all hot. Elena helped her husband to the bed. She laid him on the bed and covered him with a warm blanket. "Madam, how did you get here?" The surprised manager froze on the threshold of the room. Elena asked, handing her a basin of water and a towel. This time, the manager decided not to interrupt. He realized it was useless. Elena moistened the towel and began to gently wipe the Duke's face. When the girl pulled down the Duke's robe, she saw a large burn on his shoulder. The girl asked her husband to roll over onto his stomach. She saw that similar burns covered his entire back. "My mother left these burns when I was little. She often threw red-hot coals in my direction. She liked to watch me squirm in pain," narrated the Duke. "When I told my father about it, he asked my mother to make sure she didn't leave the burns in plain sight. The first time it happened, I was very young, so I didn't dare to cross my parents. And then I got used to it. The last time my mother threw burning coals at me was shortly before they died." Elena felt very sorry for her husband. She didn't understand why two grown men were bullying a child. The girl could not believe that parents could be so cruel to their son. "Just please don't cry. It's all in the distant past. I just wanted to explain to you why Ben wouldn't let you in my room," exclaimed the Duke. "I'm not crying. It's just a speck in my eye. Let's get on with your treatment." Elena quickly wiped the tears that protruded from her eyes. "You must have been in a lot of pain. You were in unimaginable pain. By the way, you remember that you promised to fulfill my every wish. I want to call you by your name, too. Let me do it," Elena asked. The Duke froze in surprise. He was rarely called by his name, usually by his title or just a monster. The next day, the Duke was already working in his office. Elena decided to check if he was all right. The Duke looked perfectly healthy. "Kaiwin, don't mind me. Keep working. I just came to check on you," said Elena and walked out of the Duke's office. Meeting Ben in the hallway, Elena asked him to answer her a few questions. She wanted to know what was going on in this house, why the Duke was acting like this, and what his parents were really like. She needed to know the exact reason why the Duke was abandoning the children.